When the Ice Age ended and sea level rose, the low-lying land to the northwest of Europe swamped, creating the British Isles. The British Isles in the European continent is a major group of islands with about 5,500 islands, of which there are two main islands, Great Britain and Ireland. Thus, it is clear that Great Britain is in fact a geographical term for a major island in the British Isles and not a political division. The term Great Britain was first coined by King James I, King of England. The landmass of Great Britain consists of three major political divisions: England, Scotland, and Wales. England, Scotland, and Wales in Great Britain, along with Northern Ireland in the Irish Island, and numerous other smaller islands in the British Isles, forms the UK, whose name expands to the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. In the Irish Island, Northern Ireland belongs to the UK sovereign state, while the rest is the Republic of Ireland. The capital of the sovereign state of the UK is London in England. Each constituent country in the UK have their own devolved government and parliament. Since England was just a short sea ride from the European mainland, separated by the short English Channel, the history of England was that of invasions and settlements. From Celts to Romans to Anglo-Saxons to Normans, the newcomers who made the island their home enriched the socio-cultural and political spheres of this landmass. The history of England forms a pivotal part of the history of the British Isles. This is the story of how England came to be. The prehistoric period in the history of Britain stretches from around 900,000 years ago until the Roman invasion of Britain in 43 AD. The only information we get of this long period is from artifacts left behind, Stonehenges, hill forts, and burial sites. Modern humans first inhabited the island in the Upper Paleolithic period. The beginning of Iron Age saw people hunting, farming, and forming settlements across the island. In a period which is referred to as the Bronze Age, ethnic groups referred to as Celts made the British island their home between 2500 and 800 CE. These Celtic tribes were independent warrior tribes who spoke the same language. The Celts who settled in the south were called Britons, which later influenced the name of the island. These Celtic societies were fairly complex agricultural societies and had contacts with the European mainland. This had its benefits in the form of trade and dangers in the form of invasion. The Celtic tribes were constantly engaged in battles with each other and built defensive structures like this, the Maiden Castle. Their religion was similar to that of the mainland, a pagan religion. Many Celtic tribes had their own druids. They were unique to the Celts of the British Isles, and they were the ultimate religious authority, teachers, judges, peacemakers, doctors, and whatnot. The opinion of the druid is held in reverence by the chief of the tribe. Since the Celts didn't write down anything, much of what we know about these societies come from archaeological findings or accounts provided by the Romans when they invaded Britain. The great Roman ruler Julius Caesar, as part of his campaigns in Gaul, invaded Britain twice, in 55 BC and 54 BC, but was unsuccessful. His invasion helped strengthen trade relations with the island, yet he gained no territory for the Roman Empire in Britain. About 9 decades later, in 43 AD, a 40,000-strong army arrived at present-day Kent under the reign of Roman ruler Claudius and successfully occupied Britannia, the name they gave to the new land they conquered. Claudius wished to expand his empire, gain resources, slaves, and improve his social image by conquering the land of Britons. Many Celtic tribes gave in to the new empire, while some other resisted, like the famous siege under the Celtic queen Boudicca, who committed suicide, failing to resist the Romans. The Romans were serious about the new territory. The Roman occupation brought about significant changes in the island. The character of the Roman civilization spread to Britannia. They built towns, forts, and roads which they loved to make. The rich settled down in lavish villas in villages and towns. Towns like London, York, Bath, and Chester were found, and they were packed with temples, taverns, public baths, and amphitheatres. The Romans built the Hadrian's Wall in Britannia, a 73-mile-long massive structure which marked the northernmost boundary of the Roman Empire. The visage of the Roman Britain was drastically different from the predominantly agriculture-based village structure followed by the Celts. Christianity arrived in Britain during this time through Roman artisans and traders who arrived in Britain with the stories of Jesus Christ along with those of Roman pagan deities. But this golden age came to an end in the next 350 years. With the Roman Empire crumbling, the Romans withdrew their army from Britannia by 410 AD. Yet, they left behind a bunch of cities, good roads, and a strong religion, Christianity. The ordinary people, who were farmers, burdened with taxation and feudal rules, went on farming under new rulers. The retrieval of Romans from Britannia weakened the links between Rome and Britain, eventually boosting Anglo-Saxon invasion. In the wake of the breakdown of Roman rule in Britain from mid-4th century, present-day England came under the rule of various Germanic tribes, collectively known as the Anglo-Saxons, and included tribes like Angles, Saxons, Jutes, and Frisians. De Excidio et Conquesto Britanniae, written by the 6th century monk Gildas, states that when the Roman army departed the Isle of Britannia in 410 AD, the indigenous Britons were left to rule the land with their own military modelled after the Roman army, yet significantly weaker. They faced invasions from Picts from Scotland and Scots from modern-day Ireland. The Britons invited the Saxons to the island to repel them, but after they defeated the Picts and Scots, the Saxons turned against Britons and began to capture their territories to build kingdoms of their own. The Anglo-Saxons were a small group of 3 main tribes, Jutes, Angles, and Saxons. On settling in Britain, they adopted the common name English, and the language they spoke came to be known as English. The settlement of Anglo-Saxons is regarded by many historians as the origin of England, English people, and English language. This migration changed the history of England. The Anglo-Saxons established powerful kingdoms, including the Anglo-Saxon Heptarchy, consisting of 7 kingdoms established by Jutes, Angles, and Saxons, namely Kent, Wessex, Sussex, Essex, East Anglia, Mercia, and Northumbria. The Anglo-Saxons were Christians, and the religion gained a stronger footing in Britain during this period. And they had an effective system of governance, with the king being the ultimate executive, legislative, and judicial body. They had a passion for action and were constantly engaged in battles. The Anglo-Saxon tribes weren't united and were fighting to establish dominion over others. These long years of battles and rivalry between Anglo-Saxon kingdoms is referred to as the Dark Ages in the history of England. During the Dark Ages, Anglo-Saxon art and literature inspired by Christianity flourished. The kingdoms were prosperous, but were vulnerable to Viking attacks from the north, which eventually happened, putting an end to the Dark Ages.